Well, in Job, I'm going to try to get 3 chapters done tonight, so I'm going to try to move a little bit more rapidly than I have been. I don't want to go so slow like we do on Sunday morning. I might get 2 verses. Although as I'm reading the chapters that we're in Job, there are places where I get stuck. I mean, I want to chase that rabbit. I'm like, no, I want to move through. We got 42 chapters to get through in Job, and I don't want to be here 2 years from now still working on it. So I'm going to try 3 chapters tonight. And we had this, last time we had this fellow named Zophar, Job's 3rd friend, who was perhaps the most cruel and bitter and cynical and critical of Job than the other 2 friends. But he tells Job, his name is Zophar, Zophar tells Job that Job needs to repent, that Job is the one who's wicked, and that God's actually treating Job not as bad as he should be treating him, that Job is worse than how God is actually treating him. And just very critical, very critical. And so Job fires back. The lengthy reply this time. It's 3 chapters in our book. So I want to try to cover all those and make some comments and maybe teach us something in there. But look at what Job says in chapter 12, 1 through 6. It says, Then Job replied, Doubtless you are the people, and wisdom will die with you. But I have a mind as well as you, and I'm not inferior to you. Who does not know all these things? I have become a laughingstock to my friends, though I called upon God, and he answered, a mere laughingstock, though righteous and blameless. Men at ease have contempt for misfortune, as the fate of those whose feet are slipping. The tents of marauders are undisturbed, and those who provoke God are secure, those who carry their God in their hands. There's a lot of stuff in there, so you could make a whole sermon out of that. You really could. But it's like, have you ever known someone in your life that's basically a know-it-all? And I don't mean know-it-all, but who they might really, truly be a know-it-all, but they're a know-it-all in their own mind. So Job speaks to someone like that. You guys, doubtless, you're the people who have all the wisdom. His sarcasm is obvious here. You, friends of mine, are experts. You have all the insight that any of us will ever need. Smarty, y'all are smart. Y'all are excellent. Y'all are brilliant. But you're not my boss. And I know as much as you know. In fact, everyone knows as much as you know. You think you're so smart? You're not. We all know the same thing. Everybody knows what you know. And Job maintains that he's innocent. He's innocent, even though he has been close to God, and even though he has been right with God, and even though he really is right with God, that's what he claims. His friends and all the other people around him still laugh at him and mock him. Now think about this too. He says in that phrase, men at ease have contempt for misfortune, as the fate of those whose feet are slipping. You ever notice how, and this is the way Job's friends are treating him. People who have it made, and people who don't have struggles, people who don't have troubles, you know what they think of when they see somebody who has troubles, whose feet are slipping, who are not going to make it? And we say stuff like, well, bless his heart, poor soul. They're really contemptuous. They scorn other people who are struggling. That's what his friends are doing. Y'all have it made. Your lives aren't so bad, but you have scorn for me. You have contempt for me. And you go think about it, Zophar. Think about it, Eliphaz. Think about it, Bildad. Even wicked, idolatrous people, people who carry their gods in their hands, even people who are wicked. And y'all know them too. They're not godly. They're not righteous. They're not saints. They don't know Christ. They don't know God. They don't care about God. Thieves, they prosper. Thieves prosper. Idolaters prosper. Wicked people prosper. So how does my suffering mean that I'm unrighteous? They're unrighteous. They're not suffering. those who provoke God are secure. People who provoke God's wrath are secure. They got nothing wrong with them. Their lives they got it made. Y'all know people like that? Now, if that's the case, having success cannot mean that someone is righteous. They're successful people. That doesn't mean they're righteous. And in the same way, being afflicted, being crushed, being Job's situation, doesn't mean you're unrighteous either. I mean, that's just logical thinking. Zophar, you smarty britches, you men who know everything else there is, wisdom's going to die with you. Then he says in verse 7 through 12, but ask the animals and they will teach you, or the birds of the air and they will tell you, or speak to the earth and it will teach you, or let the fish of the sea inform you. Which of all these does not know that the hand of the Lord has done this? In his hand is the life of every creature and the breath of all mankind. Does not the ear test words as the tongue tastes food? Is not wisdom found among the aged? Does not long life bring understanding? Then Job's saying to Zophar, dude, even the animals know calamity comes. They know that God brings rain, God brings all the things, the wind. I mean, disaster happens to all of them. Even the animals can tell you. Calamity overtakes us. This is an everyday life common experience. This is not just something that happens to the wicked. This is not just something that happens to me or the bad people out there. This is common. Happens to all of us. We live in a fallen world. And even though we live in a fallen world and it is fallen and we are the problem, we're the ones who made it fallen, or we continue to help it stay fallen. But God's the one in control. And Zophar and Eliphaz and Bildad, I thought you guys would be wiser than this. Let me teach you about God. He is supreme over men and over nations. Let me teach you about God. Y'all think y'all know about God? I figured that you guys would have more wisdom than you do because you don't. That's what he's saying to his friends. Y'all aren't very smart either. I know as much as y'all do. Everybody knows as much as y'all do. Even the animals know as much as you do. But God is the one who's supreme. God is, the hand of the Lord has done this. And he says in verse 13, to God belong wisdom and power, counsel and understanding are his. What he tears down cannot be rebuilt. The man he imprisons cannot be released. If he holds back the waters, there's a drought. If he lets them loose, they devastate the land. Flood. To him belongs strength and victory. Both deceived and deceiver are his. And that means people who are gullible and the people who tell them things that are not true are all in God's hands. He leads counselors away, stripped, and makes fools of judges. He takes off the shackles put on by kings and ties a loincloth around their waist. Like he frees people. Kings can't even keep you in prison if the Lord frees you. Puts a belt around your waist so you can gird yourself up and stand. He leads priests away, stripped, and overthrows men long established. He silences the lips of trusted advisors and takes away the discernment of elders. He pours contempt on nobles and disarms the mighty. He reveals the deep things of darkness and brings deep shadows into the light. He makes nations great and he destroys them. He enlarges nations and disperses them. He deprives the leaders of the earth of their reason. He sends them wandering through a trackless waste. They grope in darkness with no light. He makes them stagger like drunkards. You remember last time Zophar asked Job a question, that if Job, can you fathom all the mysteries of God? That's what Zophar asked Job. Well, I based on those verses right there that Job speaks. He might not be able to fathom the mysteries of God, but he sure can explain them. Yeah. No one can fathom the mysteries of God. He's over our heads. His power is absolute. God's power is irresistible and irreversible. Once he decides what's going to happen and makes it happen, no one can resist him and no one can reverse what he's done. Whether it's a drought or a flood. He can make it rain and a flood comes and wipes everything out, or he can make it not rain and everyone starves to death. His strength and victory gives some armies, some men strength, some nations victory over their enemies. And you can't resist it. There's nothing you can do to resist it. It's all under his control. All of the great leaders, all of the influencers of society, of all of history, all of the secrets of mankind, all of the nations, the good ones and the bad ones. God makes them when he wants them and makes them what he wants them. He makes them insane when he wants them. He makes them great when he wants them to be great. He takes away their discernment as he pleases. He gives them discernment if he wants to. He gives them wisdom if he wants to. He makes them insane if he wants to. God does this. In fact, that's what happened to Nebuchadnezzar. Remember that? Daniel said, you'll go crazy. And in Daniel 4:33, it says, immediately what had been said about Nebuchadnezzar was fulfilled. He was driven away from people and ate grass like cattle. His body was drenched with the dew of heaven until his hair grew like the feathers of an eagle and his nails like the claws of a bird. The king of Babylon, Nebuchadnezzar, went crazy and lived out in the field with the cows. God made him insane. God made him go crazy. And that's what Job's saying. Oh yeah, let's try to fathom the mysteries of God. His power and his wisdom are absolute and irresistible and irreversible. And then he says in chapter 13, my eyes have seen all this. My ears have heard and understood it. What you know, I also know. I am not inferior to you. But I desire to speak to the Almighty and to argue my case with God. You, however, smear me with lies. You are worthless physicians, all of you. Punks. If only you would be altogether silent. For you, that would be wisdom. Job calls his friends worthless physicians. You can't even diagnose anything correctly. You don't even know how to diagnose what's wrong with me or anybody else in the world. So I'm not even going to ask you. I want y'all just to be quiet. If y'all would just be quiet, that would be wise. I'm going to ask God. I want God to try my case. Then he says in verse 6, hear now my argument. Listen to the plea of my lips. Will you speak wickedly on God's behalf? Will you speak deceitfully for him? Will you show him partiality? Will you argue the case for God? Would it turn out well if he examined you? Could you deceive him as you might deceive men? He would surely rebuke you if you secretly showed partiality. Would not his splendor terrify you? Would not the dread of him fall on you? Your maxims are proverbs of ashes. Your defenses are defenses of clay. It's a serious claim. Job's friends are claiming to speak for God. They come and they jump on Job's case about his sin, about his wickedness, what he needs to repent of. They're speaking for God, like they're claiming to talk on God's behalf. That's definitely a serious case, serious issue with them. But it's even more serious to misrepresent God, to say things that are not true about him, and to presume on him what he's not like. That's what they're doing. That's what he's accusing them for. It would not go well if he examined you. You can't deceive him like you would other men. He knows. You don't know. I know what you know, but you don't know him like you think you know. All their wise words are, he says, ashes. You know what ashes are? Ashes are burned remains. All of your wisdom are nothing except burned up fire pit. Not even a fire. Not even the material that gets burned up, but the ashes of the material that gets burned up. And all of your defenses, he calls it defenses of clay, that's broken pots. Everything that you have to say is like a broken pot, which is useless and worthless, which is what he says they are. And he says in verse 13, keep silent and let me speak. Then let come to me what may. Why do I put myself in jeopardy and take my life in my hands? I really love this. This is a great verse from Job. It says, though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. I will surely defend my ways to his face. Indeed, this will turn out for my deliverance, for no godless man would dare come before him. If y'all just be quiet, I'll present my case to God. I'll speak to him. And whatever happens, fine. It's up to him. I'm not going to let you guys judge me when he's the only one who has the right to judge me. And if he judges me, that's fine, as long as I can bring my case before him and not you. In fact, he says, I can't even handle myself. I can't even handle. He says, why do I put myself in jeopardy? Put my life in my own hands. I'm just going to let God do it. He can take care of it, and he will take care of it. And this is a really powerful thought. He says, though he slay me, yet will I hope in him. You ever thought that way? Like, I'm just going to trust God, and even if he ruins my life, even if he never does anything good for me, even if he never blesses me, if he makes my life miserable, if he slays me, yet I'll put my hope in him. I will trust him. I trust his judgment to vindicate me. That's a heavy statement right there. Memorize that one. Though he slay me, yet will I put my hope in him. Yet I will hope in him. He is God. He's righteous. He's just. He's good. Whatever he says, that'll be fine. I'm still going to trust him even if he slays me. Much like what he said to his wife, shall we receive good from the Lord and not bad too, not evil also, not trouble also? And think about this too. Job says, for no godless man would dare come before him. You want to think about how true that is. Ungodly people who are really ungodly and don't care about God, they might try to lie to you, but they never go to God and say, Lord, vindicate me. Lord, I want you to be just. They don't. You know why? Because they know they're guilty. The only appeal that anybody who's ungodly can make to God, the only appeal that anybody who has no righteousness who can approach God is to cry out and beg him for mercy. You don't go to him and say, give me justice. You don't go to him and say, I've got a case I need to settle with you. You go to him and you say, I am a sinner. What the Luke 18, Jesus said? The tax collector stood at a distance. He would not even look up to heaven, but beat his breast and said, God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And Jesus said, I tell you that this man, rather than the other, went home justified before God. All I can do is appeal that he'll be merciful to me. I'm a sinner. And Job continues, verse 17. Listen carefully to my words. Let your ears take in what I say. Now that I have prepared my case, I know I will be vindicated. Can anyone bring any charges against me? If so, I will be silent and die. No, I'm not saying Job doesn't know he's a sinner. He knows that, and he even says that in this text coming up here and in other places. He knows there's sin in his life. But here's his three friends coming in saying, you need to repent. You're wicked. And he's like, what did I do? Can any of you show me what I did? Can any of you actually bring the charge and let it stick against me? Because if you can, I'm just going to die. So Job knows he's going to win his case. He knows that he's right. And if you can prove your case against me, I'm just going to shrivel up and die in shame. But you can't. So Job pleads with God, Lord, stop terrifying me. Stop. I'm begging you to stop. Verse 20. Only grant me these two things, O God, and then I will not hide from you. Withdraw your hand far from me and stop frightening me with your terrors. Then summon me and I will answer, or let me speak and you reply. How many wrongs and sins have I committed? Show me my offense and my sin. Why do you hide your face and consider me your enemy? Will you torment a wind-blown leaf? Will you chase after dry chaff? For you write down bitter things against me and make me inherit the sins of my youth. Not saying he's not a sinner. He knows their sins, but Lord, you're holding those sins against me. You've kept them written down. Remember 1 Corinthians, love keeps no record of sins. If the Lord kept a record of sins, no one could stand. And Job's accusing God of, you're keeping a record of my sins I had when I was a youth. You fasten my feet in shackles. You keep close watch on all my paths by putting marks on the soles of my feet. Why are you keeping the written record of my sins as if I'm a criminal? Job's really in some heavy despair here. It's like he's righteous and he knows it. He's blameless and he knows it. He knows his case is just and he knows that God's going to vindicate him and he's going to trust God even if he slays him. But he's still in desperation that God, why are you holding all this against me? Why are you holding my sins of my youth against me? And he keeps going, chapter 14. Man born of woman is a few days and full of trouble. He springs up like a flower and withers away. Like a fleeting shadow he does not endure. Do you fix your eye on such a one? Will you bring him before you for judgment? Who can bring what is pure? Who can bring what is pure from impure? No one. I mean, there's a faith in God, a hope in God, a trust in God, but still a despair. That life is desperately short and difficult, and you will die. You're going to die. There's nothing you can do about it. And God's in control of that. Man is unable to be sinless. Man is unable to remedy his corruption. Man's condition is corrupt. And Job, he's confused. Why is he reaping all this severe affliction from God? What have I done? Even though I know man is corrupt. And no one will be able to maintain or sustain a state of sinlessness before God. Who can bring what is pure from impure? No one. Solomon writes in Ecclesiastes 7:20, there is not a righteous man on earth who does what is right and never sins. Everybody on earth, even the righteous man sins. Isaiah 53, verse 6, we all like sheep have gone astray. We've wandered off. Each has turned to his own way, and the Lord has laid on him the iniquity of us all. We all have sinned against God. We've all fallen short of his glory. We've all wandered away from him. We've all turned and not followed him, and God placed all of our sin on Christ. Job 14, verse 5, man's days are determined. You have decreed the number of his months and have set limits he cannot exceed. So look away from him and let him alone till he has put in his time like a hired man. David writes in the Psalm, one of my favorite verses, Psalm 139:16, all the days ordained for me were written in your book before one of them came to be. Paul argues to the Athenian philosophers on Areopagus, and he says, from one man he made every nation. He determined the set dates and the places and the times they were going to live. Acts 17. I should have put that in here, but I didn't think of it till afterwards. But man has just a few short years. And God's in control of that, and God determines that. And that's stressing Job out. That God is going to afflict him, even though his years and his days are just a few days. God's determined the number of those days, the day you're going to die. He's got it figured out. And Job says in verse 7, at least there is hope for a tree. If it's cut down, it'll sprout again, and its new shoots will not fail. Its roots may grow old in the ground, and its stump die in the soil. Yet after the scent of water, it will bud and put forth shoots like a plant. But man dies and is laid low. He breathes his last and is no more. As water disappears from the sea or a riverbed becomes parched and dry, so man lies down and does not rise, till the heavens are no more. Men will not awake or be roused from their sleep. With the trees, at least they bud again. Man, once his vitality's gone and he dies, there's no way to restore it. It's gone, like a riverbed, like a dried up riverbed. The trees have it better than man. This is a really hopeless despair that Job has. He's complaining to God. He's talking to God. There's just no hope for me. But I do love this because there is hope, and I'd like to finish this for tonight. He says in verse 13, if only you would hide me in the grave and conceal me till your anger has passed. If only you would set me a time and then remember me. If a man dies, will he live again? All the days of my hard service, I will wait for my renewal to come. You will call and I will answer you. You will long for the creature your hands have made. Surely you will count my steps, but not keep track of my sin. My offenses will be sealed up in a bag. You will cover over my sin. So at one hand, he's like, if only I could die and get this over with, and then you could come back later and fix it. That's what he means, but wait. There's a hint in Job's language here of an expectation of grace. There's an expectation of grace and restoration, of renewal. Job is longing for, in this text, verses 13 through 17, life after death. Look at what Job is saying. He will wait for God to call him what? Back to life. I'm going to die. I'll wait till you call me. Wake me up again. The resurrection. And not just a resurrection where you come back to life, a glorified resurrection where there'll be no more sin. He says, you will not keep track of my sin. You'll count my steps, but not keep track of my sin. God will not forsake Job completely. He will not let him rot away forever. Job teaches this. A resurrection day is coming for Job and for everyone else who trusts the Lord like Job. He says, I'll trust him. I'll trust him. Even if he slay me, I'm going to trust him. I'm just going to wait for him to call me, bring me back to life, and restore me in glory. Same thing. We'll get to study this up coming soon. In fact, we'll start it this week. 1 Corinthians 15, but not this verse yet. But he says in verse 51 through 53, listen, I tell you a mystery. We will not all sleep, but we will all be changed. In a flash, in the twinkling of an eye, at the last trumpet. For the trumpet will sound, the dead will be raised imperishable, and we will be changed. For the perishable must clothe itself with the imperishable, and the mortal with the immortality. It's like Job knew that before Paul did. I'll wait. You will call and I'll answer you. You won't keep track of my sin anymore. My offenses will be sealed up in a bag, and you'll get covered over. So I'll be changed. In the twinkling of an eye, I'll be changed into incorruptible, into immortality, to imperishable. But then he says in verse 18, Job 14, but as the mountain erodes and crumbles, and as a rock is moved from its place, as water wears away stones and torrents wash away the soil, so you destroy man's hope. I just had a bunch of hope. I'm going to be resurrected. I'm going to be renewed, restored, but now I'm crushed again. You overpower him once for all, and he is gone. You change his countenance and send him away. If his sons are honored, he does not know it. If they are brought low, he does not see it. He feels but the pain of his own body and mourns only for himself. It's also fascinating here in Job's life because Job is a righteous man, is a blameless man. He does fear the Lord. He does shun evil. And yet he feels this despair. It's like a seesaw. You go from really high, I'm going to wait for him. I know I'm going to be restored. I know I will be vindicated. God will call me and I will be his. But between now and then, I'm just going to rot away. I'll be destroyed. I won't even know if my kids grow up to be great men and women. I won't even know if they fall apart and suffer. I won't even know that. That's Job's reply to Zophar. So we'll pick up from there next week. Job 15. Let's pray. Father God, we are grateful for your word. We are grateful for the book of Job. Thank you that you have given it to us, that we could study it here tonight. Thank you that you gave me grace that I could proclaim it, teach it. Lord, I pray that it would speak to us, cause our hearts to long for what Job longed for, a resurrection, vindication, justice, mercy. Lord, I pray you'll give us hearts like Job, that even if you slay us, even if you make us miserable, even if you ruin our lives, we're still going to trust you. We're still going to hope in you. For you are our hope. And you will restore us. And you will bring us into an incorruptible, imperishable, immortal body like Christ when we see him. Between now and then, I pray, Father, you'll just sustain us and keep us, show us your goodness. Bless the rest of our evening. Show us favor as we go home, favor through the rest of the week. Again, make the Fall Family Festival be a good time for us to have there, fun. Lord, use us to bring the gospel to people, the good news of Jesus Christ to people who are lost. Save people there. Father, I pray you'll bring us back together Sunday. We can enjoy worshiping you, fellowshipping with each other, studying your word. Make all that happen for us so Jesus will be glorified in our lives. I pray these things in his name. Amen.